Hi, my name is Andrew Taylor, and I'm a specialist in program evaluation and community impact. And these three videos that you're about to see have been created with the support of the Region of Peel and United Way of Peel region as resources for you to use as you work on demonstrating the difference your program makes. They're three real short videos, and they're each dealing with something that I found to be a point that people often get stuck on when they're trying to develop a plan to show how they make a difference, and I hope you find them useful. Hi, I want to talk to you a little bit about the idea of indicators as another tool that's helpful in breaking down the task of figuring out how to show that your program has made a difference. And what we mean by indicators, it's just bits of information that provide part of the answer to one of your important evaluation questions, or bits of information that demonstrate in some small way whether or not change is happening. And they can be scores on a scale that people check off, they can be stories, they can be ratings on a formalized assessment tool, they can be notes that a staff member takes, they can be anything, but they're bits of information in the world that you look to in order to demonstrate that change has happened. I often think about indicators in the context of navigating a boat. So in this picture you can see that there's my little boat on the water there, and the way a sailor figures out where they are on the ocean is by taking compass readings. So you can see that one side of that triangle there is a compass reading taken from the lighthouse. And so once you've taken that reading and written it down on your map, on your chart, you know that your boat's somewhere along that line, but you don't know where. So you take a reading off another landmark that's in a different direction, and then you have an X on your chart, and you know that your boat's somewhere near that X. But with two lines, you don't have any sense of the error, right? Perhaps one of your readings was off a little bit. Maybe it was foggy or wavy. So what you do is you take a third reading. And ideally, that third reading will cross at the X of the other two, so you'll know you're exactly where your boat is at the apex of all three lines. Quite often, though, it doesn't happen that way. You end up with a little bit of variation, and you end up with a triangle. And you know your boat's probably somewhere inside that triangle, but you don't know exactly where. But that's really useful information too, because that triangle gives you some sense of how much error there was in your system, how far off you were in your measurements, right? If it's a small triangle, you were pretty good. If it's a big triangle, at least one of your compass readings was way off. And the same thing applies when you're doing measurement for your program. You're looking for these different bits of information from different directions which tell you where you are or tell you whether you've made a difference. And one of the important things this analogy shows is that there is no one single best indicator. You could never say to a person in a boat that it's better to take a compass reading off the lighthouse than it is to take a compass reading off the buoy. It's only by combining information from multiple sources that you ever get to a conclusion about whether or not you know where you are, or whether or not you've made a difference. So bringing together different kinds of information is the key, rather than trying to find a silver bullet indicator which proves once and for all exactly where you are. All indicators have their shortcomings. All indicators only give you part of the picture, and you need to have multiple sources of information to really know. Now in the RBA model, they have this table that's really helpful in sorting out what kind of indicators you really need for your program. So you can see across the top it has two rows. On the one on the left says, how much work did we do? The one on the right says, how well did we do it? And the one on the bottom right asks, is anyone better off as a result? And thinking about where my indicators for my program fall in that little set of squares is really helpful. A lot of programs will find they have quite a bit of information of how much work they do, not that much information about whether anyone's better off as a result. And this table is neat too, because it forces you to express each of the indicators in terms of a percentage, which sometimes is helpful in clarifying where things go. Now this last little chart here is just a bit of an illustration of how different people come at the problem of finding the right indicators when they're trying to do a good report on whether their program has made a difference. So for example, if the outcome was increased engagement in age-appropriate activities and life tasks, You could imagine different people coming up with indicators to show that that's happened. And someone might say, my indicator is participants often tell us how excited they are to be able to volunteer. Not such a great indicator. It doesn't really say whether change has happened. It's a bit more subjective, and it's a bit more, it's not clear how systematic they were in getting that information. Whereas a better one might be 75% of the graduates from our program had begun new volunteer positions by the time they finished our program. A little bit more specific. Even better might be none of our 80 participants were volunteering before they started the program. 60% are still volunteering 6 weeks after completing the program. So practicing on the idea of indicators and thinking about different bits of information that you can sort of use to cobble together a persuasive case for the fact that you've made a difference is real helpful. And I think one of the things that I find is if you've taken the time to really sort out your program outcomes, and you've taken the time to think, what are the questions we really need answers to? And then if you've also stopped and thought about, what are the bits of information, what are the indicators that would really give us good answers to those questions? By the time you turn to the task of designing a survey or picking a standardized tool or what have you, you've already done most of the thinking, and the designing of the tool itself is really easy.